sometimes Russian women are not even better. You know, social media can be a very interesting source of information. And recently I watched podcast. Somehow it was on Instagram. And then I watched the interview of two Russian women, young girls, who were talking about how to get rich immediately. And they were considering straight away, not a millionaire, but a Russian man who will go to the front line. So she's going to marry him, and then he's going to be killed by Ukrainian army on the front line, and she will get the money from him. Could you imagine? You will not ever see that on the Ukrainian social media. Never. I'm the consumer of Ukrainian social media. You will never see such a conversation ever.
Well, the cynicism of this war is another thing, and the cynicism of the political system in Russia, because even in the Soviet years, there was some, from the leadership, there was some kind of a dignity. They believed in that system or something. Their children didn't live abroad and so forth. So what you're talking about is really horrible, because if you watch the Russian TV, which I occasionally do, it's very difficult to, but it's like nothing's happening. They have all these talk shows, they sing songs, they celebrate. I mean, you watch this and you think your country is at war. Actually, your own citizens are dying galore every day on the front line. Talking about women, I don't want to be gender biased, but I'll tell you, it is stunning how many Russian women actually support Putin. And even in the diaspora, I've left Russia over 30 years ago, but I see here Russian women of, say, my generation or younger women who actually admire Vladimir Putin. They think that he is the man, he is the person to rebuild great imperial Russia. And they live here in the West. About young Russian women, yes, people think exactly. The families, I even read about the mothers who want to send their children to the front line because of, for whatever financial reasons, because they get a huge salary. So in addition to what we've discussed, they get an initial payment of something $10,000 to $20,000 a month upfront, but then they get $2,000-3,000 a month for serving in the front line. So yeah, this is an income for them. It's a very cynical, it's a combination of incredible cynicism and at the same time, incredible nationalism, because people also genuinely support the mission, as to the beginning of our conversation, because they believe it's Russia, it's Ukraine is a non-existent entity, as Putin actually just in June, I think he said at the St. Petersburg Economic Forum, again, he said the Ukrainian and Russian people are the same people, and in this sense, all of Ukraine is ours.
Yeah. Well, definitely we're not the same people, but you know, in 2022, I've heard a lot of news when the families of dead Russians, usually parents, they were asking, will we get our car? Because, you know, in 2022, Russians were giving even a car to the family for those who lost their kids on the front line. Not only salary, not only money to bury their loved ones.
You know, it is, I have the same feeling and sentiment. Of course, I remember still the Soviet-Afghan War. And my own brother, went there in the last year of that war in 1988, 89. And I remember that the Soviet people were actually very resistant. So particularly when perestroika started and everything. But that was the war done through conscription, of course. There were 18, 19-year-old boys drafted and sent to Afghanistan. But the difference is also, I think, the big difference, again, because the Soviet people never thought of Afghanistan as their own land. And they thought, why the hell do we have to fight for Afghanistan, for these Muslim people in a different land? But they do think the Russian people are so deeply indoctrinated to think that Ukraine is Russia, period. So even if you go, say, if you remember Zhirinovsky in his younger years, he was suggesting to separate the Caucasus, to let it go. He says, let them go. So the Russians don't think of like Chechnya or Dagestan.
Yes. Do
Russia.
They think the same about?
Like,
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, go on.
But Ukraine, to like a Russian person raised in Russia, Kiev is, as you know, the mother of Russian towns, as they say. So Kiev is Russia, is the beginning of the Russian history. And now more and more, this story, this narrative is really conveyed to every single Russian child. This is the beginning of Russian history. This is part of Russia. That's why I think they accept this war so much, because they are saying, if you watch the Russian TVs, they're saying, even actually it was very funny if you saw the last meeting of Lukashenko with Putin. Lukashenko literally said, well, in the Russian state, and if the war continues, if Zelensky doesn't negotiate, they're going to conquer more and more land. And Putin corrected him. He says, not conquer, return.
Yes.
Return.
Yes, so I saw that moment, yeah.
And Lukashenko actually laughed, because I think he doesn't believe in that. And he laughed and he like said, oh, okay, return. So Lukashenko is actually playing with fire, because I think Putin, I'm actually convinced that Putin will want to return Belarus one day too. Right now, he doesn't need to do that, but that's again coming back to Solzhenitsyn, and I think Putin very much has a lot of respect for this man who said that Belarus is definitely in the Russian nationalist idea is Russia. So Malorussia, Belarusia, so all of that is Russia. So right now Putin doesn't need to do that because he controls Belarus basically as a puppet state. But one day, I think it's part of his legacy, as some people who worked with Putin and fled, is to unite Belarus, Ukraine, and Russia as a new imperial state. So Lukashenko is playing with fire. I don't know if he realizes that.